Welcome to the Pod-Key Summary of Seth MacFarlane. Today's episode is really about range. Seth MacFarlane starts as the guy who built Family Guy out of a student film and a painfully underfunded pilot. But the bigger story is how that same career stretches into big band records, science fiction, and a pretty clear public commitment to humanism and labor solidarity. And running through all of it, there's the same tension you see in his work all the time. He's drawn to irreverence, but also to craft, old-school form, and serious ideas about what culture is for. The origin story is almost annoyingly perfect. If you're talking about raw early talent, MacFarlane was drawing cartoons at 2, publishing a weekly strip by 9, and while he was still at the Rhode Island School of Design, his senior thesis film, The Life of Larry, became the basic foundation for Family Guy. Then Fox gave him just $50,000 to make the pilot, which is tiny for primetime animation when an episode would normally run at least $1 million. So he spent about 6 months drawing the thing in his kitchen, sleeping almost not at all. And the result was crude by necessity. But it worked. The pilot was strong enough to get an immediate series order, which says a lot about how clear the voice already was, even before the polish showed up. What happened next is one of those rare TV comeback stories that actually deserves the legend. Family Guy got canceled twice and still came back because the audience just would not let it die. Fan loyalty mattered, and so did huge DVD sales, which now feels like a very specific artifact from another media era. That persistence turned the show into a franchise worth roughly $1 billion and helped lead to MacFarlane's reported $100 million Fox deal in 2008, which made him the highest-paid TV writer in the world at the time. If you talk about MacFarlane, you have to talk about the fact that his comedy keeps walking right up to the line between parody and offense, and sometimes stomping on it for emphasis. Family Guy drew years of complaints from the Parents Television Council and FCC indecency complaints, and MacFarlane did not exactly answer that criticism in diplomatic language. He's also run into copyright fights that get at the same basic question. When is a joke transformative? And when is it just taking somebody else's work for a ride? One lawsuit targeted the song, "I Need a Jew," as a parody of a Disney-style number, and courts ultimately treated it as protected comedic transformation. Another case involved Jesus doing magician Art Matrano's signature act, and that one settled out of court. Then there was the 2013 Oscars, which kind of compressed the whole MacFarlane debate into one very public night. Some people liked the Ricky Gervais-style willingness to needle Hollywood. Other people thought numbers like "We Saw Your Boobs" leaned too hard on provocation that felt manufactured instead of sharp. That split has followed him for years. For some viewers, he's fearless. For others, he's trying too hard. And somehow, both reactions are part of the brand. What makes MacFarlane more interesting than the usual shock comedy profile is that he built a second career that sounds like it belongs to a completely different person. He's released 9 studio albums and performed at the Hollywood Bowl, Carnegie Hall, the Royal Albert Hall, and the BBC Proms, which is not a casual side hobby. And he hasn't chased contemporary pop. His lane is traditional pop, Sinatra-style phrasing, swing, show tunes, and lush 1950s orchestration. He's described that kind of large-scale orchestration as a lost art, and he trained with Lee and Sally Sweetland, vocal coaches associated with Barbra Streisand and Frank Sinatra. The critical response has been mixed at times, especially early on, but the work has still earned 5 Grammy nominations, which tells you this isn't novelty karaoke with a big budget. His 2025 album, Lush Life, the Lost Sinatra arrangements, pushes that even further. It used arrangements by Nelson Riddle, Billy May, and Don Costa that had been found in Sinatra's music library, but never actually produced. That turns the nostalgia into something more substantial. It's not just imitation for the fun of old-timey glamour. It's closer to archival preservation through performance, which is a very MacFarlane mix of fandom and craft obsession. Orville is where a lot of people realize MacFarlane wanted room for ideas his sitcoms couldn't really hold. Moving into live-action science fiction, let him get more earnest about exploration, ethics, and what humanity owes itself. and the show's reputation improved after a rough first season that got pretty negative reviews. It later moved from Fox to Hulu, and that shift tracked with the sense that the series was finding its own identity. One small but revealing detail from that world: a third season episode got abandoned because of COVID production delays, and MacFarlane turned the unused story into the 2022 novella, The Orville Sympathy for the Devil. That's a neat example of a production problem becoming part of the universe instead of just disappearing into a folder marked maybe someday. His sci-fi interests also go well beyond one show. He executive produced Cosmos, A Space-Time Odyssey in Cosmos, Possible Worlds with Ann Druyan and Steven Soder, and he funded the Carl Sagan and Ann Druyan Archive at the Library of Congress. That makes the through line pretty clear. The guy who built cutaway gags and talking dogs also genuinely cares about science communication and the long-term cultural memory around it. MacFarlane is also unusually explicit about the worldview behind all this. He's an atheist, and he frames that around critical thinking, humanism, and scientific curiosity rather than just culture war point scoring. His support for the Sagan Archive fits that pretty naturally. It reflects the idea that space exploration and scientific inquiry are collective human projects worth protecting. He's been outspoken on gay rights, and Harvard named him Humanist of the Year in 2011 for advocacy tied to equal marriage rights and social justice. Politically, he's supported a range of Democratic candidates over recent presidential cycles, including Sanders, Clinton, Buttigieg, Biden, and Harris at different moments. And on labor, he's been publicly consistent. He backed the 2007 and 2008 Writers Guild strike and objected when Fox produced Family Guy episodes without his approval during that labor action. Then during the 2023 WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes, he donated $1 million to the Entertainment Community Fund for film and television workers affected by the shutdown. That part of the story matters because it rounds out the picture. Whatever you think of his jokes, there's a pretty stable set of commitments underneath the career. So if you only think of Seth MacFarlane as the Family Guy guy, that's really just one slice of it. The fuller version is a creator who swings between provocation, orchestral nostalgia, science fiction idealism, and real-world activism with a confidence that's hard to mistake for anyone else's. And honestly, not many careers can plausibly include FCC complaints, Grammy nominations, and the Carl Sagan Archive. That's a pretty specific resume. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.
Podkey.